the coach that took the time to really teach you the position in the game at just an entirely different level, like, can you kind of take me through like what that felt like to really start to grasp the position in the game from that perspective?
Yeah, I look back. I mean, the last 2 years, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on like how I got to be how as good as I was at the position and how I can apply the same principles into this next phase of my life. And like, so that took it all the way back to that point. And like, it's crazy the amount of foresight like that guy had in my career, because I remember it was my freshman year. I went to throw with him once or twice, and he came out to our car and tapped on my mom's window and he's like, "Hey, he needs to keep coming back. He's going to be really good." And I'm like, what is this guy seeing? Like, like, these are like questions I've been asking him in the last year. We've been having lunches, and I'm like, how did you know? Because I've thrown with a few kids recently just to help out and give back, and like, I'm like, how could there's some kids that just don't pay attention. You could tell you're talking to them and they're not even listening to you. And so I want to ask him, I'm like, "Hey, was I that way? Like, were you talking to me?" And I'm like looking, you're just like talking to a wall. And he's like, "No, that's like, as much as you were, I guess, evaluating me, which I really wasn't. I was just like, this guy seems to know what he's talking about. I'm going to keep showing up." He's like, "I was evaluating you." And he's like, "You were always locked in. You had like a lot of things that made you really good that were already there." And I'm like, "Dang, that's so." It's been cool to hear his point of view now on how he just saw me at such a young age, and how it's translated throughout my career. I forgot what your question was and why I was going there.
You pretty much answered it. I was just curious as to like when you're working with somebody that just sees all of your potential and greatness, and
Yeah,
like kind of what that felt like to understand the position in the game from the perspective of a guy who believed in you. I think like to me, like that type of relationship, it's hard to imagine that not working out in some epic way down the line. You know what I mean?
I was so lucky to have him, because I was always questioning it. Like, even so he said that was my freshman year. Then my junior year, I was fortunate enough to get enough game tape to put out to colleges to get recruited. Um, and I remember him again saying something to my mom where he was like, "Hey, make sure you're looking at the quarterback history there, and that they have a common theme of putting quarterbacks into the NFL." And I'm like, "What the heck is this guy saying? What is like, we're just trying to get school paid for." So, but he was like, "No, we're not just going anywhere. You want to go somewhere where you're going to succeed and go to the NFL." I'm like, "Whoa." And I remember being in my mom's room, and we're back then there wasn't Huddle or anything. You're putting together your envelopes with your paper, your highlight tape, and like a cover letter, and just mass sending those out in the mail. And then I'm calling the coaches that I like specifically want to go to make sure that they're getting my tape, because they're getting thousands of these, hundreds of these a day, and not looking at any of them. So I remember him saying, "No," I'm like, "Wow, okay." Now we're looking at like how many quarterbacks have they put in the league the last 10 years, like who are the coaches there, and have their systems put out quarterbacks. So that I still didn't really believe, and then ended up getting a Division I scholarship to Nevada, which after my junior year, I had probably 5 or 6 schools that were interested. D1 schools. It was like Nevada, San Jose State, Utah, Kansas State, Oregon State. And a lot of these schools will have their summer camp around the same time, and kids will just like bounce around. So that's what I did. I had like a 2 week span where I went one school here, 2 days later, another school, and ended up getting Nevada. I thought I was going to get Oregon State, didn't end up getting any other schools, but got Nevada, and they weren't a school that I should have went to. Collin Kaepernick was there, and I'm not fast. They were still wanting somebody similar to him, but they said the way that they were selling it to me is the guy before Collin was Jeff Rowe, I believe, or Jim Rowe, and he was more of a pocket passer, not fast, and that's kind of what they wanted to get back to. So we were like, "Okay, well, let's do it. We'll commit." And we were super pumped. Like, we're like, "Did we just get our first offer? We're getting a Division I school paid for." And like Nevada, walking around the campus, it's sick. It was really nice. So we committed, and that was like the first time I went against what Peter Goodson is the coach that I'm talking about. Like, one of the only times I have not listened to him, and I should have, because then I'm there for 6 months. I realize like I'm never going to play here. Coach Alt, who's been there forever, has a bunch of records. He told me I'll never play. He's like, you can be like one of the third string quarterbacks here. We'll keep you on scholarship, but you'll never play. I'm like, all right, I'm out
They
here. And I'd
they said
already,
that to you? Like
yeah, yeah,
you'll never play. Just shut the door just like that. Like
yeah. I think they knew I had been talking to junior colleges. Like I went home a few times and met with a few junior college coaches just to see like if I bounce back, would I play? What would the opportunity be like? And I think the guy who recruited me got word of it somehow. Um, but either way, like you think if they really wanted me, they'd be like, hey, stay here. We're going to develop you. We like you. No, they're like, yeah, you can go. You'll never play. And yeah, he literally said that. He's like, you'll never play. You can be. He referenced another quarterback that was there for 4 years and never played. He's like, you'll be like him, and we'll keep you on scholarship. We like you, but you'll never play here. And I was like, all right, I will see you later. I told him like, yeah, I want to play. So, which is it's there's in this story also in the last 2 years of just reflecting on my career. Like there were so many times where I was confident in decisions that could have gone to like I could have left that Division I school and never got another one, and it could have gone a whole different way. Could have went to some like NAIA school and or a smaller school, not have gotten an opportunity to go to the league, and that could have been like a deciding factor because you could have stayed at Nevada and there could have been injuries. All of a sudden I'm playing and I actually develop into the guy I'm going to be.
what did you learn about yourself personally, David, from the experience at Nevada? You get there, you're all ready to go. They're like, hey, you're never going to play. Colin Kaepernick's our guy. You leave, you go to junior college, then you go to Wyoming for a couple of weeks, similar situation. I'm just curious what you learned about yourself personally during that time.
Yeah, that was like before these last 2 years, the most self-reflective time I'd had. Like I'd realized, okay, I'd wanted D1. We were all pumped on D1, but I realized I wanted to play. Like, so I knew that I knew I wanted to play, but I also learned how to get better. Actually, like, I think I definitely had naturally done it with my coach there because through high school, we would show up every day. We'd have certain things we're focusing on, and we'd have certain measurables that we're like consistently getting better at. And I think in the beginning stages, as long as you keep showing up, you're going to dramatically get better early on. Like it's the same thing with like working out. When you first start working out, the first 6 months, you're going to make some huge gains. But then after that, you're like, I've hit a wall, a plateau, like, and you got to get a little bit more detailed in whatever direction you want to go in order to make those changes. And I think it was the same thing for me when I got to junior college. Like I'd already built the foundation in terms of like throwing the ball, being able to read a defense, being able to go out there and play at a pretty high level. But I needed to like figure out the mental aspect because now I know how to play the game, but now I'm worried about like, am I gonna like? I'm worried about a bunch of external factors. I'm thinking about like, is this other guy? What's he doing? Is he better than me? Am I doing better today? Like every day, I'm like, oh, at least I did better than him. And it's like you get so caught up in a bunch of stuff that is irrelevant to you getting better. I noticed that I'd started reading this book by Gary Mack called Mind Gym. I tell like every high school kid or anybody early in their career, like even now you can apply these principles to your life. Like, and there's other books that basically say the same thing, but it's I was creating a highlight tape, visualizing like generally what I wanted to do, like in practice and in the tape. And it was crazy how it would show up in the game. Like I would get my few plays, like after you have an idea of what you want the outcome to be, you can kind of visualize what that feels like, what it looks like, what it would be like to celebrate, what it feels like to throw a good ball, what the grass is going to feel like. Certain like things that you can put together to create a visual and your body doesn't know the difference. And I had started doing that and it was like week by week, I'm like, holy crap, like I have figured something out. Like if I told people what's going on, like I saw this, but and it would happen. And I like continued my career. I just kept doing it because I was like, no doubt, 100%, it was making me a better player. But the main thing that I learned at that point when I bounced back from Nevada was just like control what you control. I'm going to pick 1 to 2 things that I can like really focus on that are going to overall make me a better player. Like if I focus on my footwork, naturally I'm going to throw a better ball because if my footwork is dialed in, my timing is going to be on, my base, everything is going to be aligned. That's going to throw a better ball instead of just like, oh, I'm going to throw 10 perfect spirals. Like, okay, well, how the hell are you going to do that? So picking things that like if I just worry about one thing, like this is gonna overall make me a better player. And like then all of a sudden that's all I focused on. I'm like, I'm gonna get my 3-step drop better today. Like if nothing else, I'm gonna get my 3-step drop better today. And like I just kept doing that every day at practice, and then all of a sudden you like pick your head up, and now I'm starting and doing well.
Controlling the controllable is a massive piece, whether you're an athlete or you're not, because I think it's so easy, at least from my perspective, it's so easy for your mind to latch on to the things that you can't, and then that distracts you from what you can. So it's really hard to develop and perfect your craft as an athlete in the workforce when you're focusing on all that other noise. When if you can just take a couple seconds to think about what's really important, like you did, like, hey, I want to throw a better ball, so I'm going to work on my footwork, then that's where you're going to start seeing the magic happen. And that's just such a valuable lesson for all of us.
I think fortunately for me, up until that point, I had enough experience in like education and playing the position that I knew like what levers were going to move the needle. I think for me now, like sometimes there are certain areas of my life that I don't know exactly what levers are going to move the needle the most efficiently. So it's like get around, and the benefit of all these distractions is we have access to people, right? Like we can connect in a matter of weeks and have this conversation. You can do that with people who are 2 years, 3 years ahead of you now. And maybe you think you want to be like this, like someone in whatever area of your life that you want to role model it off, and like hit them up. What are you doing? What are the like one or two things that helped you get to where you are? And then just like focus on that. Um, so I think that's something I've like kind of taken now too.